Welcome to Lady Loves Comedy. I am Dina Nina Martinez, founder of Lady Loves Comedy and the host of the show today. Because, you know, that's a surprise. We're watching this on video. Today I have the amazing Melanie Vesey, who has just released Wild Animal, her comedy special, and it's on all these places. So I'm really excited to have her here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so happy to see you.
Yes.
With your large, enormous Rubik's Cube.
I know, it's so crazy. It was a prop from like an 80s themed party, and I was like, I'm taking this home.
Keep it. So Melanie, you just released Wild Animal, which is your 40-minute comedy special. Yes. Tell us a little bit about that real quickly. You don't have to be quick. Just tell us about it.
You were like, so you can watch it on Revry TV. You can listen to it as an album on iTunes and Spotify. And it is a story about how I have like the aftermath of some crazy stuff that's gone down in my life. I had a child with a Project Runway winner. I've been shot by a New York City police officer. I'm raising a human child despite myself being a wild animal. So those are some of the things I'll be covering in Wild Animal.
So we talked on Query about how you did the show in black and white. I thought that was so interesting. And like I told you on Query, I felt like it lent itself to actually hearing your content and your story versus just watching a project. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So tell us about how that happened.
So I shot it in color. It was, of course, shot in color and all that stuff. And we did have some technical difficulties with shooting it. There was just some color stuff, and there were some parts of the stage that were more lit than the others. There was just, I wish
they're always, girl.
I really wish more people knew like all of the challenges you have to face when you're bringing content to a person. And there were a lot of challenges with this content. So then kind of like by accident, my editor kind of flipped a switch. And at one point I saw it in black and white. And I was like, oh, like this will solve everything. And I thought it actually elevated the project. I actually thought it made it look really cool. And I'm a total movie geek. You know, I love Bob Fosse, and I love the movie Lenny Bruce, Lenny. And I love movies in black and white. I think it's really special. And I hope it doesn't alienate a younger audience. They're just like black and white. Like I'm just like, I hope I married a millennial, you guys, and I cover that in my special. So
totally. I'm like, just tell them it was a filter.
Yes.
They're like, oh, the black and white filter. I love that.
Yeah, it's called Inkwell, and I just put it right over my special. So yeah.
That's rad. So can you tell me, like, how did you get into comedy? What made you want to do comedy? Because, I mean, most of us feel like it's a blessing and a huge curse being in comedy.
Oh, my God. Well, number one, I've only chosen careers that are almost impossible to make it in. Like, oh, being an actress or a filmmaker, a comedian, like, good luck with that. There are challenges there. So actually, when I was about maybe like 11 or 12, I turned to my stepdad one day and I was like, I want to be a stand-up comedian. And he was like, okay. And I was like, because I'd been watching a lot of Elaine Boozler on TV, and this was kind of like the heyday of like HBO specials, and Sandra Bernhardt in the A-List, her show The A-List, where she would wear those. This is why I always get dressed up for comedy, because watching her in like a strapless beaded gown, I mean, her body is just mwah, like come on, like just insane. So I just was like, I want to do stand-up comedy, but I went in a very different direction. I was a dancer. I went to Juilliard. I studied with Alvin Ailey and Martha Graham, and then I went into acting and co-starred with Jim Carrey and Man on the Moon, and did like TV and commercials and all that stuff. And then it wasn't like, I took such a weird roundabout to get to comedy, but it wasn't like I was motivated to do comedy. So somebody heard me speaking, and they were like, you're really funny. You should do comedy. And I was a little bit of a prima donna, because I was like, I've been in movies. Like, I'm not going to go to an open mic. And then they were like, I'll give you time at the Comedy Store. And I was like, we're good. Let's go. You know, so I started there. And comedy has always been And I really feel like it probably always will be a part of my life. Even though I took a really long break to raise my son and what have you, I just feel like this is kind of like it. Like, I just feel like I have to be this person that's talking on stage. It does soothe me to be on stage with a microphone in my face. And hopefully audiences too.
Right. I mean, most of us are like attention whores that love it. So
yeah, I address that. I address that in my comedy.
So some of the things I wanted to, so you took a 10-year break from comedy, which I found really interesting. I've been doing comedy for 12 years, and it sounds like, for me, it feels like a lot of time, but in all honesty, like it's so fast, and there's so much to learn, and there's so much growing to do. When you picked up, you told me that when you picked it up again, it was like everybody was there for it. They were like, welcome back, come on.
Yeah, and that's why I always want to tell artists this, because I really feel like artists, I mean, I could just speak for myself, like I'm usually in some sort of state of self-loathing, that I'm no good, this is terrible, you suck, who are you fooling, you're a fraud, everyone's laughing at you, whatever that list of that you have in your own mind that's tailor-made for you to like put the brakes on. That's why I was like, if you need to take a break to have your life, because I really feel like there's some danger, and also too in this kind of like, don't get married, don't have children, don't have a life, like career is the number one thing. And then unfortunately, and this is all just my opinion, but as we see people aging, terrible things are happening to them, whether they need to be medicated or suicide or what have you, but they're alone. Like they don't always have families, and they don't have children, and they don't have like community or whatever it is, because they were so driven to this thing. But success is like like an altar that is like the bitch altar of success. You know, like we pray at this thing, but it doesn't always give back, right? So you do want to make sure that you have community around you, chosen family, friends, a partner, children, whatever that is for you. It doesn't have to be the way that I did it, you know what I mean? But it was very important to me to have a partner, and it was very important to me to have a child, and I did. And I guess the fear is that like, oh, why would you crush your dreams like that? You know what I mean? I'm like, well, my dreams don't consist of me dying alone. You know what I mean? Like, I do feel like it is possible to have a family.
My dreams do consist of me dying alone.
I do feel like it is possible to have a family and a career. However, you do need a family that is supportive. And I didn't have that the first time around with my child's father. His career, unfortunately, was more important at the time. And that's okay. That was where we were at the time. And then I met my wife, and she was so supportive, and I could return to comedy. But I valued being the kind of mother that I wanted to be, which was that I was with my child for the first 10 years of his life. And then, like I said, I wanted to return to comedy, and they were so supportive. They were like, go do your thing. We're fine. We're just going to stay here and play video games. Like, see you later, lady. You know what I mean? And then I reached out to my friends, and they were all like, yeah, come do a set. Like, it was like, oh, okay. And I also feel like that's why when people are like, you've only been back 5 years. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not like I'm starting from zero. I'm still starting from, I had the time before, and telling stories and what have you. And I got all these stories along the way and a point of view. And it was like it kind of just rolled a little bit faster, because it was like I was catching up.
I find it interesting because you took 10 years away, and I just moved away from Los Angeles. And I feel like if I go back, everybody's going to be like, I thought you quit. Where have you been? You're
on social media. You're around. We see that's what I love about social media too. Like, you can still keep your presence up. And also too, like, you can still be fabulous in your corner of the world. Like, I know that everybody's like New York, LA, and all of this stuff. Like, but I'm also like, should you have to go home to, I don't know, care for parents or a child or a friend or a partner or whatever, like, you can still go do those things and be so awesome in your corner of the world and still follow your dreams. And social media gives you the chance to do exactly this, which is, we're talking, we're in two different places. You know what I mean? Like, you do your thing in Kansas. Like, I came to your thing in Kansas because I thought it was cool. You know what I mean? Like, you can still absolutely do your thing. And then when you return, or if you want to go back to those places, you still have a body of work. The needle doesn't have to come up off the record,
And that was one of those things like when I left, Vargas told me, don't quit.
Yeah.
Don't stay way too long and don't quit. And I was like, well, this staying way too long might happen. But I didn't quit. And that's one of the things that I like, whether you there's a difference in taking a break and quitting. And if you quit something, you have to make sure this is something that I've been milling over in my head. And I just did a keynote speech the other day talking about funny women and what I learned from doing comedy for so long. And I was like, if you quit something, make sure that you end it. Like you end it right. If you take a break, that's fine. Your momentum you can still pick up that momentum.
Yes.
That you've already created. It doesn't completely stop. Yeah. If you stop something, you stop it, you know? And that's the interesting thing. Don't quit something because you feel like, oh, I need to get a normal job. If you need to take care of bills, that's one thing. Setting something aside is another thing for a moment.
I absolutely agree with that. And I felt like, you know, after I, had this terrible trauma and I was shot by my girlfriend, and I literally, like, I quit acting. Like, I quit because I was like, my mental health was banana town. I couldn't, like, get it together. And that's why when the time had come where it's like my child was old enough and I had all the support with my wife, I was able to say, I never ended that in a way that brings me peace. It was all because of trauma. It was all fear-based. It was all fuck everything and run. It was all like, okay, I'm going to blow this up because I can't deal with it. So now that I've returned, I do agree that there is a total difference between quitting something and then just taking a break. You know what I mean? Where you can rest for a second and just know that you're not missing any opportunities if you need to revitalize, whether you need, because so much a part of this is about earning, about making money. Like, we have so many people out here that are like, I literally do comedy with multiple men a night that are living in their cars in LA because it is so expensive to live here. And what a horrible thing, the challenges that we face as artists, to be poor, to be, and then you can't do shows as much because you're running around, you're trying to make money. And like, if you need to take some time to get your feet back under you, it will be of more service to your art. And that's okay. Like, I feel like that's my message. And
doing comedy in LA, you don't make money.
No. It's so funny. Like, I went back to Michigan last summer and because I'd done the Motor City Comedy Festival there, and they've been so generous with me in the past. And I just posted in their little like Facebook page, like, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'd love to hop on some shows. That's all I wanted to do, was hop on some shows. And they were like putting shows together for me. I was headlining, and then they went to hand me money. And I was like, I had to like pretend like this happens all the time. I was like, oh yeah. I'll take that. Like what? Like, for kind of like a glorified bar show? Like, did you just give me $200? Like, this is banana town. Like, and I have to explain to people, LA is a showcase town. And like what I explained in Query, like how I finally got Wild Animal onto a streaming platform was because the CEOs of a streaming platform saw me perform. And venues out here know that. They know that there's all this opportunity. And unfortunately, they prey on us as performers. They say, well, the booker for Conan could be in the audience and blah, blah, blah. And this could be your thing. And then
could be.
And here's the thing, it has happened to me, but does it happen every show? Hell no. And on average, I would have to say it probably costs me anywhere between $10 and $25 to perform out here every time I'm on stage.
Because that fest alone is $15.
Honey, the gas, if I have to grab a meal, or exactly. Good lipstick.
Like, makeup is expensive.
Like, I mean, okay, between gas, parking, if I'm out long enough, I need an extra meal. So we're talking about every time I leave my house, it is at least $20 to $25.
Yeah.
So if you can't, and I'm really grateful that I figured out how to earn as an artist out here with my company. So I can afford to go do multiple shows a week, and I'm not sleeping in my car because of it. I can still give my kid shoes every month like he needs, and keep the lights on and have a nice house, and we're still good. You know what I mean? But it is a challenge.
Yeah. One of the things I tell my students here in Madison, Wisconsin, and because most of the shows here, they split the door.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people get something.
Amazing.
And I'm like, you are so fortunate to be able to get paid to perform right away. Like,
No one would ever. No
right?
one would ever.
For years in Los Angeles, I didn't get paid anything, you know?
No.
So I tell them they're really lucky and don't expect it right away.
Yeah.
You know, because like, yeah. And then they get spoiled. I didn't get anything on that. I'm like, honey, do you know how many shows I did? Let's talk.
Yeah. I'm like, so like in all transparency.
Reality check.
Yeah. Like in all transparency, like when I perform at the Improv, I make anywhere between like $11 and $15 a set. I know this is going to blow people's minds because it's one of the major clubs in LA. So I performed regularly at the Comedy Store. I was not a regular there. So when you get past there, no matter like who you are, it's like between $35 and $60. Like if you're Chris Rock, if you're Ali Wong, it's like, you know, unless you do have a door deal where it's like you're getting half of the door, it's a completely different thing. But if you're just there performing regularly, it is right. A small fraction. And you watch the TV show or you read the book called I'm Dying Up Here, which talks about the strikes in LA and why we even had to fight even to get that $10. They didn't pay those people $10. And again, people couldn't get a burger afterwards. Yeah. They couldn't pay their rent, you know?
And that's like, I was doing a lot of research lately because I did a keynote called The Power of Funny Women. Mm-hmm. And so I did some research and like, I remember going to the Improv, Hollywood Improv all the time and seeing Leslie Jones there.
Love.
Killing. And so I want people to realize that, and everybody's like, oh, she's on SNL and she's in her late 40s, early 50s now. Like that is so rare, first of all, to be on SNL at that age.
Oh.
But the years of doing shows where she got $10 to $60 in LA, and everybody's like, oh, but she was killing it in LA, and everybody's like, oh, you performed at the Comedy Store. Yeah, I performed at the Comedy Store. I made $5, you know, maybe.
I don't get paid when I get on a booked show at the Comedy Store. Right. No, the producers here, like, they're like, we're producing the show. They get 100% of the door. It's just, no, you wouldn't make any money doing that. And I've also had people who like come from other parts of America who, unfortunately, what happens is sometimes when you become the big fish, like in your town, and then you come to LA and you got to kind of start from small fish, you know, or medium-sized fish. And unfortunately, it's a blow to people's egos. So I've sometimes had people come and be on my shows and they're like, why aren't I getting paid? Or why aren't I getting more? And I'm like, this is the way that it is, like here, like I'm not getting more. It's like, and they get very discouraged very quickly. And sometimes they just leave because they weren't validated in that way when they came, you know? So it is challenging, but you have to.
And there are celebrities that come in on those shows all the time that don't get paid at all. Like Sarah Silverman's been on shows with me that she didn't get paid for that. She popped in, you know, like, so that's the reality. And I think that's important for all of us to kind of know when we're not in a big city, when we're doing something, that appreciate what you get here. And then when you go to a big city, keep doing it because you love it. And if you don't love it, then go back to where you came from and be a big fish.
Well, and also too, the thing also too about being the big fish is even though you come back and you kind of start a little bit from ground zero, because hopefully when you come, you've got solid material and you will climb that ladder much faster than somebody who's starting comedy with nothing. Do you know what I mean?
So all the actors that are like, oh, I should do comedy.
Nobody likes that here. I mean, like I am a trained actress. I do not lead with the fact that I am an actress because I don't want people to think that I'm just a tourist, that I'm just totally like, I'm just going to do like a tight 10 and then get on a sitcom. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I'm actually like, I would like to get a sitcom, but because I'm a great comedian and then do tour because I got a sitcom, which means I could do more comedy. Like they're like, for me, those are in bed together. Yeah. Not actors sometimes do the like, I'll just do comedy because then I could just get back to my acting, but they won't continue the comedy. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a bridge somehow.
Totally. 100%. That's one of the things like for me right now is I just booked a big movie, which I'm so excited.
I know. So cool.
And so for me, I'm like, my next step is once this is released to pivot that. Not only am I working on TV projects, like I've got things in the works,
Yeah.
but I'm also like, I want to tour. I want to be in front of people being funny and being me.
Yes.
Because they need to see me and they need to see you.
Mm.
And so when we talk about that, let's talk about being a woman in comedy and being a queer woman in comedy.
Mm.
What's your experience been?
That's like the number one question that everyone's like, what's it like to be a woman in comedy? Well, I guess I would have to say that I do feel like I'm in a little bit of a bubble out here, where I feel I've always been out. I've never hidden that. I don't only talk about that though. Like I don't just do gay material and I don't want to just be in front of gay audiences. Actually, I'm better in front of straight audiences. It's funny. I actually have a little bit of a joke where I had two shows where I was primarily in front of lesbian audiences, and it didn't go great. Unfortunately, lesbians can be a little bit. I love you, lesbos. I love you so much, but you guys can be a little uptight sometimes. You know that, right? Like you know that. Okay, yeah. Gay dudes are like, can't laugh enough. You know what I mean? So it was funny because I was like, well, you would think that lesbian audiences are my demographic, but they're not because we eat our own.
Yes.
That was kind of like my joke around it. But then again, I hosted the LGBTQ Center for like hundreds of people on Saturday. It's such a great time. So I love my community. I'm not saying I don't like to perform in front of the gays. Clearly, I love them, and there's a shorthand. But I'm also very good in front of straight audiences because I don't just lean on the fact, and I'm also not like I don't necessarily push my agenda down people's throats, even though my set for Laugh After Dark is a little heavy-handed about the voting situation in Middle America with white women not protecting our people of color,
right.
of color. Which is painful for me to watch and witness. And I think that I'm lucky that I live in LA because it's not necessarily a part of the conversation all the time. But here's the thing also too, I'm also really focused. So I ask to be on a lot of shows. I think that's why I do a lot of shows. I'm a doer. I'm not necessarily waiting for somebody to put me on a show. And sometimes I am the only woman on a show. Sometimes I'm the only gay woman on the show or a gay person on the show. And sometimes I do have to sit there and listen to homophobic, racist, misogynistic, rape culture comments. And it can be challenging. Mm-hmm. It can be painful to watch. However, and I can't take credit for this, but after a mic once, it was a very challenging mic, and this woman came up to me because it's hard to watch people bomb. It's hard for them to talk about these things, but I'm like, how could you even like, because they're like, oh, what, I can't talk about this? And I'm like, yeah, you can't talk about this one thing, but you can talk about everything else, like everything under the sun. You know what I mean? Yes. Stop talking about raping your mom. You know what I mean? In the ass. Like you don't have to go there. You don't have to do that. But, you know, if you, whatever. So this woman was like, well, I love open mics and I love watching men bomb because it's the only time I get to watch just men fail, right? And I was like, and it helped me sometimes to sit there and just like, oh, I get to watch men fail. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to say like I only want to watch men fail. I'm saying like, it is kind of like refreshing sometimes to be like, oh, you're just bombing right now. Great. Right? You know what I mean? So it is very challenging sometimes. And it is sometimes, and I have been met with some, definitely some challenging situations. I think you reached out to me after the time. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that in particular evening, which doesn't happen all the time, but I was walking into an open mic and it was me and the three women that I were with were the only women in the room. And we opened the door into the open mic, packed. I mean, anywhere between 75 to 100 dudes. Like it was a lot of dudes. And walked in, and this was the joke that was hanging in the air. I really wish that OJ had killed Nicole harder. that's my time. Thanks so much. Like that was the punchline. And I was like, oh my God, what did I just walk into? Like a secret meeting? Like this is it. I was like, it was so painful. And then I was like, okay, let's take our seats. And then my name was the next name to be pulled out of the bucket. So I literally had to go on stage after a man talking about how another man should have killed his wife harder. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I was able to like turn whatever was going on inside of me into that, like, sometimes I can actually like feel the fact that I'm going to kill, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to crush this. Like it actually empowers me to do better. It doesn't necessarily like push me down to make me feel like I'm going to do like, oh, I don't know what to say. And I'm just, actually it gives me the balls, I think, to do better. But then there was another guy that went, so I killed and it was great. And then the other girls were waiting to go up and for some reason they weren't going up. And then I look at the guy who's pulling the names out. He's looking at the names, unfolding them and putting them back in. So he was serious. It wasn't a lottery. He was literally seeing if he knew who the next person was. So my friends weren't going up. So as people go up, they're leaving. The room's getting emptier and emptier and emptier. Then this guy comes in. He's kind of like a headliner, but he was kind of like a budget Sylvester Stallone looking dude. And he was just telling his stupid jokes.
I know that guy.
Yeah. And this was one of the jokes. He goes, hey, I'm really excited about the fact that it is now a part of, like, it's law that you have to have a woman on the board as a CEO at a big company. And I was like, oh, cool. This is great. He's maybe going in the right direction. He goes, I'm so glad about it because someone's got to pour the coffee. Someone's got to clean up. And I was like, oh, like that. And I didn't say anything, but the girl next to me went like this, like, like she made the tiniest of sounds, like that she was just like, man, what the fuck? And he turned to us and he goes, shut the fuck up, Nanette. And I was like, oh my God. He was like, shut up, Nanette. He goes, I earned this. I belong here. I earned this. And it was so barbed. And he knew that if he took this word, Nanette, which is the call back to Hannah Gatsby's award-winning special, mind you, award-winning, which is like breaking rules all over comedy left and right. And he took that and he used, it was almost like, calling us a racial slur or dyke, or, he was trying to use this thing that he knew that maybe we thought was a good thing and just turned it and fucking like shoved it in our fucking face. And it was horrible. And then afterwards, after the show, there were some guys that came up to us afterwards and they were like, hey, we saw what happened and we just want you to know we feel really bad we didn't say anything. And we were like, I was like, thanks a lot now on the curb. But I was like, I get it. And then what I said in my post the next day was, I absolutely understand why you didn't say anything because comedy is this big. Why would you want to stand up for me? And then this booker is never going to book you again because you're the dick that did the thing and that guy's pissed off at you now and you're not, and now you're somehow got the whatever. You're not going to work or whatever. I get it.
Yeah. You
don't have to necessarily like be the guy that's jumping in front of the bullet. But if you ever have an opportunity to book a show, book us, book women, book people of color, book LGBTQ, book somebody that's in a wheelchair, got a different perspective with a cane, with a frickin' whatever, like book the people that don't get booked because we're not the ones that are taking your spots. Other white males are taking your spots, not us. It's not us.
Because we don't have them.
No.
So one of the things that I found interesting was I was talking to one of my friends out in LA and she's like, you should really come back. We need your voice in the community. It's a lot more accepting of LGBT people. Yeah. And when I started doing comedy, there was Ian Harvey and me. Like we were the only trans comics that I ever heard of. Maybe Tammy Two-Tone in New York. And now there's like this group of trans comics, which I just love so much. But I'm also like, bitch, hey. But also like, she was like, it's a lot more accepting in the community. There's a lot more queer people running things. And I'm like, oh, rad. So when I was out there last summer, I did this horrible mic at like a punk bar downtown. And I did this show and then this mic. And so the person with me was Cal. I don't know if you met them.
Yeah.
gender non-binary and
Yeah.
really wonderful person and
Yeah.
really funny comic.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting through this open mic where the lady who was like, I'm on a television show, and she's like, I mean, who's not?
Seriously.
But she was so obnoxious about everything. And the rest of the show, the mic, were guys, and they were just like heckling back and forth. And so this mic with 6 people lasted for 4 hours.
How?
Okay, that's long. I'm exaggerating. But it was so long. And it really took about an hour and a half for Cal to get on. And it was such a light audience, right? And our light group of comics. And one guy was like talking about watching the R. Kelly sex tape. And then another guy was like, did a kind of rapey joke. And then another guy was talking about how I love trans women. I think all trans women should be massage therapists because they have big hands. And this lady was just laughing, and they were cutting jokes on queer people and women, and she was just feeding into it. And I was sitting there and I was like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
Why would I want to come back to this?
Yeah, there is that element, but it's also like, I also just know that like I go where it's warm, like wherever I can. So I found like, as far as my open mics go, I also no longer go to lottery mics anymore. Like if I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to spend that $20 to $25 to leave my front door in LA, I will not get up. Like I need to get up. So now in LA, there are these things called slotted mics.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this place called the Fourth Wall, and you literally like at the early part of the day, you see what slots are available. You put your name in, you Venmo them $5, and you will get up. You will get up at that time slot between 8 and 9. The 10, 15 comics come in, the door closes, everybody stays in. Nobody gets to leave, because that's the hard thing. Because by the end of the mic, you and the booker are the only ones there, and you want to murder yourself because like, why? So it's kind of like, and I found that group, they do have a couple dudes that just haven't gotten the message yet that they are dinosaurs, and their point of view is, some of them are just so painful. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're going to do your thing. Clearly there's maybe an audience for that somewhere, whatever. But again, I'm totally fine with watching them fail. But I find that mic, I go to the one on Western, and it seems to be actually like pretty progressive. A lot of LGBTQ people are just kind of like mixed in there. And I have no problem there. Like, and I just love the fact that I can be like, I'm doing a mic tonight, I'll be home in an hour. Like it's a business transaction. Like I pay my $5, I do my set, I go home, we're done. Like I don't have to like drive around. I don't have to wonder if there's only going to be 2 people there. Like I can see that 10 or 15 other people are going to be there. So that is, I feel like, an advancement. I love the slotted mics out here, and it's been super helpful, but not all of them have always been welcoming. So that's the one that I found that's been the best one.
Right on. Well, Melanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
For being part of the Lady Laughs comedy family. We love you.
Thank you. Love you too. I had such a good time at the festival.
Totally. I loved having you there. You'll have to come to the one in Madison.
Yes.
So you can find Wild Animal. You can find the links on ladylaughscomedy.com. You can go watch it, buy it, download it, do all the things. That's her special. She's amazing. MelanieVesey.com.
Yep.
And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nina. You're a gem. You're a gem. In the crown. A jewel in the crown of comedy.
Yay.